Hello, I'm Devin Feely. These are the biggest primetime headlines in the week of April 21st. Bears civil rights icon Cecil Williams died today at the age of 94. Williams spent decades at the helm of San Francisco's Glide Memorial Church. Williams and his wife Janice co-founded Glide in 1963 and were tireless champions for the city's poorest residents. And Mayor Breed described Williams as the conscience of San Francisco. The U.S. Supreme Court has agreed to hear a case challenging the Biden administration's regulation of so-called ghost guns. The court would examine whether a regulation imposed in 2022 overstepped a federal law from 1968. It requires manufacturers to have serial numbers on the kits and keep records of who buys them. The Biden administration said the move was designed to address a surge in ghost guns in recent years. Several advocacy groups and manufacturers of those kits sued, claiming that the regulation was illegal. The regulation does remain in effect following various court rulings. An injured tree trimmer was rescued by helicopter in the North Bay. He got hurt in the area of Mount Hood in Santa Rosa. A firefighter was lowered from the helicopter and secured the victim in a basket stretcher, eventually airlifting him to a waiting ambulance. The head of Israel's Defense Forces military intelligence branch has resigned. The IDF says that this follows his, quote, leadership responsibility for the Hamas attacks on October 7th, and it marks the first senior military figure to resign over those attacks. Officials are working to determine the cause of death of this 40-foot gray whale that washed ashore at Robert Crown Memorial State Beach on Saturday. Crews towed the carcass to Angel Island today, where it's going to be inspected. The Marine Mammal Center says it's the first whale casualty of the year in San Francisco Bay. Ferry service could return to Sausalito as early as this week. The Golden Gate Ferry began work to repair damage to the Sausalito Pier. Service between San Francisco and Sausalito is suspended until it's fixed. In the meantime, they're offering buses. Former President Trump's hush money trial resumed today. Former National Enquirer executive David Pecker was back on the stand. He described for the jury how the Enquirer used its so-called catch-and-kill strategy to ensure that negative stories about Trump never got published. Pecker says that Trump and his former attorney Michael Cohen reached an agreement with the paper in 2015 to spike any bad stories aimed at Trump and instead run negative stories about his rivals. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, quote, should resign. In an interview during a visit to Ireland, Pelosi said that Netanyahu has been an obstacle to peace for years. Pelosi also recently called on the Biden administration to halt weapons transfers to Israel. Lake Tahoe's ban on plastic water bottles kicked in this week, and that means that residents and tourists will no longer be allowed to bring them into the city. And more importantly, stores are banned from selling them. The ban was approved by the city last year and officially went into effect on Earth Day on Monday. Environmental advocates in Tahoe say the ban was needed to keep the lake clean. These are your primetime headlines at the half hour. One of the nation's largest healthcare companies was hit by a cyber attack and has decided to pay a ransom to the hackers. United Healthcare was targeted by hackers in February. Russian hackers claim responsibility for the attack. It disrupted prescription drug orders for thousands of pharmacies and left patients in limbo. The hackers say that they allegedly stole more than 6 terabytes of data, including sensitive medical records. United Health says it's continuing to restore services for patients and has not said how much they paid. The CDC is warning the public tonight about a spike in measles cases in the U.S. As of April 18th, Thursday of just last week, there were 125 cases reported in 17 states so far this year. The overwhelming majority in people who are not vaccinated or whose vaccination status is not known. Nearly half of all cases are children under the age of 5. Doctors say that measles is the single most contagious virus that we know. The best way to avoid infection is to get vaccinated. Back here in the Bay Area, 2 falcons atop UC Berkeley's Campanile Tower welcomed 3 baby falcons into the world. The mama bird laid 4 eggs last month, and the first 2 chicks hatched on Earth Day. The third arrived this morning, and tomorrow the university will host a hatch party as we wait to welcome the 4th and final chick. These are tonight's primetime headlines. A fast-moving apartment fire in Oakland sent 3 people to the hospital today. It broke out at a complex at the intersection of 60th Street and Martin Luther King Way. The fire department says that 2 of the victims are in stable condition. 1, however, is in critical. Investigators are still looking into the cause of that fire. A federal judge has set a sentencing date next month for David DePape. He's the man who was convicted of attacking Paul Pelosi, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband, with a hammer back in 2022. DePape was convicted in November on charges of attempted kidnapping of a federal official and an assault on a member of her family. He's also facing a separate state trial for attempted murder. A new report from the American Lung Association shows that California and the Bay Area have some of the worst air quality in the entire country. This is part of the organization's State of the Air report. It found more than 9 in 10 people across the state live in a community that earned a failing grade for ozone and particle pollution. A lot of that poor grade came from all of the wildfires in 2020 and 2022 when the report collected its data. A new California rule aims to limit healthcare cost increases. The plan would cap doctors, hospitals, and health insurance companies to 3% a year price increases. It is the latest attempt to prevent the ever-increasing cost of medical care in the United States. The 3% cap would be phased in over 5 years, starting with a 3.5% in 2025. Now, board members said the cap likely wouldn't be enforced until the end of the decade. Providers who don't comply could face fines. Boeing says it's lost $355 million on falling revenue for the first quarter. Now, this comes as the company faces scrutiny over the safety of its planes. Today, Justice Department officials met with families from the 2 deadly 737 MAX crashes as part of an investigation into the company. It was launched in the wake of the Alaska Airlines door plug incident in January. Investigators are looking into whether Boeing violated terms of a deferred prosecution agreement it entered into to settle looming criminal charges from 2 MAX crashes. In San Mateo County, the registrar says that they have finished scanning the 16 challenged ballots in the District 16 congressional race and will make a ruling on them court shortly, but did not give a specific time frame. The result of that ruling could tip the balance in the recount that began back on April 15. After Evan Lowe and Joe Simidian got the exact same number of votes, tying them for second place against former San Jose Mayor Sam LaCorte. These are tonight's primetime headlines. The Stanislaus County District Attorney filed a motion today opposing the new DNA testing in the Scott Peterson case that was requested by the Los Angeles Innocence Project, saying the 14 items have either already been tested, they don't think that they're relevant to the case, or the burden of proof to have them retested has not been met. The court is scheduled to take up the DNA request on May 29. The Oakland Police Department is holding an open memorial this Friday for Jordan Wingate. Officer Wingate died on Saturday from injuries that he got in a car crash back in August of 2018. The memorial will be at Three Crosses Church on John Drive in Castro Valley beginning at 11 o'clock. It is official, TikTok could be off limits to American users as soon as next year after President Biden signed the potential ban into law today, which means the estimated 890,000 California businesses and 16 million individual users in the Golden State will be cut off. That is, unless TikTok's parent company ByteDance sells its U.S. operations in the next 9 months. Now, in the meantime, TikTok plans to fight that law in court. Governor Gavin Newsom announced a new effort to help people in Arizona seeking reproductive care. He's asking state lawmakers to fast-track a bill that would allow doctors from Arizona to perform abortions here in California. Now, this is a direct response to the Arizona Supreme Court. Now, earlier this month, that court ruled that the state can start enforcing a law from 1864, which bans all abortions unless the mother's life is at risk. The proposed bill would go into effect as soon as the governor signs it and last until the end of November. A Bay Area lawmaker's plan to crack down on speeding drivers has passed the Senate Transportation Committee with one big change. The original bill from Senator Scott Wiener would have required all new cars to include speed governors to prevent drivers from going too far above the limit. Now, the modified plan would require devices to alert speeding drivers with a visual or audio warning, but not slow the vehicle down automatically. San Francisco has a new tool in its effort to try and hire more 911 operators. The city unveiled their newly renovated dispatch center. They say it's been redesigned to make operators' jobs easier. The new center also gives them space to decompress between the 3,000 calls that they take each week. The city says they've also made the process of getting hired much easier with a base salary, including overtime, starting at around $106,000 a year. A sad day in Pleasanton today. A deadly crash yesterday evening killed a family of 4. It happened around 9 o'clock last night on Foothill Road near Stone Ridge Drive. There was only a single car involved, and investigators are still trying to figure out exactly what happened. Police say that 2 of the people who died were children, and at least 1 was a student in the Pleasanton Unified School District. Just a day after San Francisco launched a newly renovated 911 emergency dispatch center, a bump in the road. The computer-aided dispatch system went down for more than 2 minutes this morning. Officials say the center was able to switch to a backup system and that there was really no impact to emergency services. The renovation marks an expansion for the center that receives more than 3,000 calls every single day. California marks a green energy milestone as it works to shift to 100% renewables by 2045. Governor Newsom out in Yolo County today announcing that the state's battery storage capacity has surpassed 10,000 megawatts. That marks a 10-fold increase from when he took office in 2019. Mourners gathered today at the National Cathedral in Washington to remember the 7 volunteer workers from the World Central Kitchen killed by an Israeli airstrike while trying to give food and aid to Gazan refugees. 2 of those 7 were dual American and Canadian citizens. Israel described the incident as a deadly mistake and dismissed 2 military officers shortly after. Former President Trump was back in New York for his hush money trial. He's accused of falsifying business records to cover up a payment to porn star Stormy Daniels. It was the second day of testimony from former tabloid publisher David Pecker, who says he used his role as publisher of the National Enquirer during the 2016 election to buy damaging stories about Trump, then squash them. Before heading to court, Pecker will be back on the stand tomorrow as well. At Redwood City, bride-to-be has her wedding dress back after police arrested 65-year-old Henry Fonseca. Investigators say that he is the man in these surveillance pictures seen taking a box with a $2,000 dress off of her front porch on April 11th. Police say that tips from the public were crucial in tracking that suspect down. Thanks for watching. You can get the latest headlines and weather over on KPIX Plus. And remember to like and click the button on the bottom left of your screen to subscribe for the biggest Bay Area news.